requests regarding agenda items only. Open forum number 2 is to hear requests or make comments regarding non-agenda items and will be heard at the end of the meeting. Those addressing the board are asked to limit their comments to 3 minutes per meeting. The speaker should identify his or her name, group affiliation if any, and make a brief presentation with an identified solution if one is sought. Remarks should be addressed to the board as a whole. Oral presentations may not include charges against any employee or a board member by name. It is my responsibility to determine if a person addressing the board has attempted to resolve the concern informally or through the district's complaint process. If not, the speaker will be directed to follow the appropriate policy. The board requests that all presentations be made in a courteous, respectful, and professional manner and asks that speakers monitor their own behavior. If you wish to speak during one of the open forums, please fill out one of the cards located on the table in the entry hall. All right. Mr. Chapman, any comments?
No, the COVID update is in your packet, and then the follow-up information from the last board meeting and any clarification was in your Friday update.
All right, thank you. All right, at this time we will review the board activity chart. Start with Mr. Cargile. Mr. Brown.
The only thing I'll mention is that, as you guys know, I'm a part this year of Leadership TASB, and we had our second session down in Austin, and it was absolutely outstanding to get together with 34 other trustees throughout Texas, and we study and learn together additional information to become master trustees. We got to visit with Hurst-Euless-Bedford. We also got to visit TASB's offices and meet with them and learn a little bit about what TASB does.
I have a lot. I've been busy again visiting schools. So excited that Trinity High School made the playoffs and excited that LD Bell made it so far. It was really fun to watch those two schools this year have some success. Our Board Ambassador Academy learned about continuous improvement. We had our facilities meeting, which was great. Today I went to my first Suzuki Strings recital. I got to see one of my friend's kids. It was amazing, and she had a lot of teachers there, which I think spoke really highly of our teachers reinvesting in their kids. I visited Kyle Coburn's classroom at Central Junior High, and I got to hang out with kids. They were reviewing for a test, which was fun, a history test. I actually knew some of the answers. And then he let me talk to the kids a little bit after we were done, so I got to ask them just about junior high. It was an 8th grade class, and talking to junior high kids. I'm doing better about that. I went to the Meadow Creek Fall Festival, and thank you so much, Principal Rodriguez. It was amazing, and I spent way too much money at the silent auction, didn't care, had fun. I went to the South Euless Fall Festival, and that was equally as amazing. They had lots of games and all kinds of, they had pizza, and it was crazy. I went to see Peter Pan at Bedford Junior High. Y'all, if you missed it, those kids were amazing. They were amazing. I visited Miss Madrid's Spanish immersion class at Veridian to do the Day of the Dead festival that they did. They were third graders or 4th graders. Oh my gosh, they were so cute. We did crafts. I went to Midway Park to help participate in their fun run, did a couple of laps with their principal and some of their teachers and got to talk to them, and that was a lot of fun. Went to Stonegate Elementary for their Veterans Day celebration, and that was great. They had the entire school outside. They had lots of veterans there, and the kids sang 5 songs, honored the veterans. It was absolutely out of the park amazing. I went to Hurst Hills. They had a chili cook-off. We sampled 15 chilies, and that was a lot of fun to visit with some of their teachers. And then I do want to do a special thank you to Julia Harris. She spent 90 minutes with me after our update that we got from her. I called her still with some more things that I wanted to discuss, and her team spent 90 minutes with me talking about mental health, suicide, and drug abuse. I want to just shout out to her for the time that she gave me. So I've been busy.
All right, thank you, Ms. Cole.
The only thing I can add is I attended LEAD HEB Year 2. That group spent an entire day with Ms. Hollander and Ms. Tuttle and learned about crucial conversations. And so I got to participate in just a small portion of that entire day.
All right, thank you very much, Board. I wanted to take a point of privilege and just recognize that we have a lot of members of the Leadership HEB group here this evening. So welcome, and we're glad you can make it to to watch a board meeting. So. All right. All right, we're ready for open forum 1. Anything for open forum 1? Nothing? All right, then at this time, the board was going to adjourn to closed session. Pursuant to Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code Section 551, the board will adjourn to closed session for purposes of 551.071 to 551.074. right, the board is now reconvened into open session. We are at item 9.01, approval of payroll administrator. I will accept the motion.
I move the board approve the appointment of Melissa Coulombe as the payroll administrator.
Second?
I have a motion and a second for the board to approve the appointment of Melissa Coulombe as the payroll administrator as submitted. Please vote. And that motion passes. Is Ms. Coulombe here? Hi. Hi, we want to give you an opportunity to say hi and to introduce anybody you have with you, and we just want to welcome you to the HEB family.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. I brought my husband Seth Coulombe with me. He's a senior master sergeant in the Texas Air National Guard.
Thank you.
Very happy to be here.
Thank you so much. Congratulations. All right, are there any items that any board member would like to be removed from the consent agenda? Hearing none, I will accept the motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second?
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as submitted. Please vote.
Sure, I'm happy to. There it is. Did everyone vote again?
I don't have a place to vote. I'm a yes.
You a yes, Andy?
Yes, twice means yeah.
All right, should we take a hand vote?
You take a hand vote.
All right. Okay, the consent agenda has been approved. At this time, we will hand out certificates of appreciation, and I will turn it over to Ms. Cole.
Okay, thankfully, we have a very long list of donors this evening. Thanks to all of you for a grand total of donations tonight of $16,600 to this school district. First, we have Ms. Ross. She's presenting to Textron Trust and Bel Air Elementary. A $930 donation will go towards supplies for students. And we have Erica Martin and Andy Garcia will accept the certificate.
You're supposed to be up there.
I'm sorry, I didn't have your name. Daniel. Thank you, Daniel. All right, also, Ms. Ross has Blade to Bel Air Elementary, BLADE. I'm not sure what that acronym is for. This is a $1,030 donation going towards the purchase of school supplies for students. We have, Daniel again. Now I have your name, Daniel. Daniel Poma, Elsie Rodriguez, Erica Martin, and Andy Garcia.
Yes, what was the
Bell Leadership Association for Development Excellence. It's part of Bell.
That's great. Thank you.
Good, good.
We are so appreciative of Bell's longstanding support of Beller Elementary and HBISD. Mr. Romero has a certificate for, on behalf of Lakewood Elementary School PTA to Lakewood Elementary School. This is $2,950 going towards field trips fees for students. We have Principal Ramirez will accept the certificate of appreciation. Mr. Romero also has a certificate in honor of Six Stones Mission Network to LD Bell High School, a $1,000 donation going towards student scholarships, and Principal Randy Belcher will accept the certificate. And again, Six Stones Mission Network to LD Bell High School, Mr. Cargile is presenting a $1,000 donation. This one's going towards the schools and or student needs. Is it different, the same? Great. Another longstanding supporter of HEBISD is Six Stones Mission Network. Mr. Cargill also has a certificate for Meadow Creek Elementary School PTA to Meadow Creek Elementary. This is $5,940 donation to the 6th grade team building at Camp Thurman, and Principal Ann Rodriguez is here to accept. We have Mr. Chris Brown. It has a certificate for Deborah Rissler to Central Junior High School. And she's not here. I read the note, and I thought maybe she'd be here. A $1,000 donation go towards student lessons and incentives for CJHS, and Principal Katina Rhodes is accepting. And Mr. Brown has also given her a second donation. I saw you gave her both $1,000, another $1,000. This one goes towards 7th or 8th grade boys athletics. And Mr. Fred Campos has a certificate for Texas Health Harris Methodist Hospital HEB Auxiliary, Inc. to Bell Manor Elementary School. This is $1,750 going towards special projects. To expand the sensory wall, we have Carrie McCarty, Maribel Moeller, Rebecca Roper, and Cindy O'Hara. Did I get everybody's name? Oh, Debbie Showell. I didn't even look up. You're not Carrie McCarty. Thank you, ladies. I already did at the beginning.
All right, thank you for those generous donations. We really appreciate those. All right, now we're going to get into reports and presentations. Were there any questions on disbursements for the month of October 2021?
No.
All right, then we are down to district benchmark assessment. Dr. Norgard.
Good evening. I am here bringing you a report on 2 additional ELA tests this evening. As with almost all the reports that I give you, this is interim data related to Success Measure 1.1A about our MEETS grade level goals, and 1.1B, our master's grade level goals as a district. So a little context in the tests we're talking about this evening. You've heard me talking a lot about there were new TEKS and new instructional materials in ELA. For K-8, we've talked about so far, that was in the year we went into shutdown. Our 9th through 12th grade English classes were actually trying to implement new materials and new TEKS last year as we started in a virtual year and coming back from all of those trainings. So that was a new instructional materials year for them last year. I will talk more about this when we get to the English 2 test, but I am actually reporting on 2 CBAs instead of a DBA in English 2. I'll explain that when I get there. And a reminder that in the year-to-year trend data for last year, we only used the numbers from our traditional students. So when we look at our ninth grade English 1 DBA, you can see where last year, even as we were implementing new things, there was actually very little movement from the year before. And while we had some slight drops at approaches and meets this year, I was actually quite excited to see the growth at masters, because we've talked so much about if students are struggling at the low end, we can't put all of the attention there. We need to grow all of our students, including our ones that we are pushing to those high levels. Meets and masters is what we have our goals set for, and we saw some nice growth in the master's level here in ninth grade English 1. These are the performance objective targets where we expect to be for minimum incremental gain based on last year's results that we want to exceed this year. So when you look at across these years how students were showing growth from their DBA 1 to DBA 2 and then EOC, you can see the rising bars. So you can see on the far right side where we are and where we need to be as a minimum to meet our goal by the end of the year. For these groups of students, now this is an interesting group. I'll remind you because we talked last week about 7th and 8th grade reading DBAs. So English 1, 9th grade has both reading and writing on the test. This group of students were in that group that used to be tested every year in reading, 3rd through 8th grade, and they would have tested writing in 4th and 7th grade. When this group of students was in 7th grade, they did not take STAR exams. So the last time we had a state writing assessment for these students was when they were in 4th grade. My chart doesn't go back that far. I could have, but it would have been a bit much. So we do have some writing DBA data, so that's really helpful to now have some writing-based data for these students included on this DBA, since it will be combined English and writing. You can see that actually coming through last year, they maintained relatively level performance. And in fact, at meets, that blue line actually ticked up quite a bit from where this group of students left off at the end of 8th grade. They've really grown at that meets level for how they're coming in this year. So we're going to continue that trajectory towards that goal. Okay, I mentioned English 2 shifting to CBAs. At high school previously, our English 2 DBA was given halfway through the year. Well, that meant it was halfway through the winter trimester. DBAs are usually a shutdown. We're simulating that testing experience. But based on some feedback from our committees, we did decide to shift this to 2 CBAs within the A portion of the course. So some students take the A part of English in the fall trimester, some in the winter. So I'm giving you the fall trimester A student data this year. Because as you know from our trimesters, if we try to shut it down on the same day, different students have had different amounts of instruction. So we decided to do this strictly within the A portion of the class, but since it's not a shutdown, it's a CBA, not a DBA. Which means there's one other thing I need to bring your attention to when we're looking at CBAs instead of DBAs. DBAs are always set, the percent correct to hit each of those thresholds comes from the state. We take the last STAR or EOC exam for that grade and subject and use the passing standards that they had for each of the thresholds. They change. They move quite a bit from grade to grade, subject to subject. For CBA, since this is an in-class assessment, we're looking at essentially in-class standards. If you're meeting the grade level standards, like passing a test, so we use 70% for meets and we use 90 for masters and A-level performance. So on this particular test, it actually works out beautifully. It's the same percent correct as masters would have been had this been a DBA. And actually at this CBA, we're holding our students to a slightly higher standard on this CBA than had we been using a DBA with those EOC STAR standards. So those that were performing well at this level on CBAs would actually have also been performing or even exceeded had it been a DBA. So when we look at this data, CBA, one that was given, you can see August of this year and then late in October. So we saw some growth of these students as they spent their first trimester in this course. So we saw nice growth in both areas for meets and masters. Again, we don't report approaches on CBAs. So in fact, they are already at the meets goal based on last year's English 2 students, how they ended the year, and far exceeded for masters. So we want to see that grow even higher. Now these only had about 2/3 of our students were in trimester A in the fall. We've got more in A right now, so we'll have more data for them, but this is more than half of our students that are well on track to meet or exceed these goals. So a little bit of variation as we have moved from DBA into CBAs in what we can report in the year-to-year trend data and see the growth, but you can on the right see how we have these groups of students have already grown from CBA 1 to CBA 2 and where they need to be by the EOC. So if I look at historical data for this group of students, not different groups of 10th graders, but these students across these grades, you can see where they were not able to take a STAR test was in 8th grade, but really fairly level performance across that 9th, and a big gain there at masters. So it's really nice to see that we are continuing to push our students to those high achievement levels. So we're not just intervening for our students that are struggling to meet the standard, but also continuing to push everyone to their highest performance possible. So really for both of these tests, based on feedback we received from the principals and teachers in our district data meeting when we discussed this, two big themes emerged. Teachers are still requesting some short cycle assessments that our secondary ELA department is writing, because now that they have data, they're like, I want to go in and pick this genre and this skill for this group of students. So they're continuing to build that data bank. We've had it, but they're continuing to build. And then also coming up as we are continuing into our online testing, we've had some requests for teachers about using digital dictionaries and thesauruses and helping teach students how that's different. There are skills with a paper dictionary that may be different with a digital dictionary, and that really we do want our students to be able to use both. There are differences. Last year, there was trouble with the platform on the day of testing, so we will continue to have paper dictionaries available. Most students prefer the digital, but they asked if our ELA department could make some videos, some sample practice, so that students are familiar with both forms of dictionary and thesaurus use. They felt like that would help move their students even further. Any questions about English 1 or English 2?
Any questions from the board? All right, so these numbers are noticeably better than what we see with the younger students. Is that just because the older kids were better online and
You know,
better
the phrase
adapt?
that LaDonna would use a lot is, you know, the most fragile of skills, those early reading skills. As we have moved into, these have all been ELA as well, that we've really been reporting where we're seeing these stronger gains. And we transition from that learning to read to reading to learn. So it's taking the skills, using them in new ways, using them in different genres, applying to different levels. And so I do think that these students probably were able to maintain more of those skills. It's just bringing them back to the forefront and using them in new ways versus there were the bigger gaps in skills. Maybe you didn't spend as much time on poetry, but you have some other skills to hook once I expose you to poetry versus math of if you didn't learn how to add fractions, you're really going to struggle with multiplying fractions.
Right. Okay, thank you. All right, are there any questions on reports and resignations, retirements? All right, we're to goal 1 and 2 scorecard update. Dr. Harrington.
Okay, tonight we're bringing 2 success measures forward. I have from goal 1, quality indicator 1.6, increased student attendance, and success measure A, 100% of campuses and district will achieve a 97% or more student attendance rate. So here's our graph. It is a little hard to read. I'll read it to you. So at the end of the first 6 weeks, which was September 17th, we were at 93.56. Our attendance continued to get better. And by October 29th, which is what we were reporting the first and second 6 weeks, we were at 94.88. Just for your knowledge, last week's attendance was 95.3. So attendance is rebounding, and we are seeing better attendance as we continue to move through.
And then I'm going to cover goal 3, which of course is quality teaching, administrative, and support staff, and specifically 3.1B, which is our quality employee performance. We know that an indicator of employee performance and employee engagement is attendance, and we also strive to ensure that our staff is present because we know their attendance correlates to student attendance. So our goal is to have 97% or higher annual averages for campuses and departments. And on the next slide, We have in the blue, under first 6 weeks, the aqua blue on the far right is what we're reporting tonight, and we were at 96.7% at the end of the first 6 weeks. While we do have student data for the second 6 weeks, our attendance is also dependent upon the payroll reporting period, so we'll be coming back to you in December to share the second 6 weeks. So we are on target for this particular indicator. Any questions?
Any questions for Ms. Tuttle or Dr. Harrington? Thank you very much. The next item will be the 2022-2023 school calendar options. Ms. Hollander.
Absolutely. I believe you have these in your background data. I'm going to give you a few items that I've gone over already, but I want to go over again. I want to share the calendar process that we follow every year. I first want to thank Dr. Harrington and Holly Norgard, Dr. Norgard. Both of them were very helpful in putting together our 3 options. In September, we started gathering data, and then October, we created 2 mock calendars, and we took that to our calendar committee, and we listened to them. It was a good 35, 40-minute conversation, and there was a lot of input, and from that input came a survey. We did learn that the parent-teacher conference was something that the teachers really wanted to have placed back. That didn't really affect the calendar. It was just good information that we gathered. We gathered information from the universities who have actually chosen their spring breaks. There is not another school district in our area that has chosen the calendar yet, so that's not data that we have yet, but it looks like it's going to fall where we have it. We did send the Google form to the elementary teachers and the principals concerning the parent conference, so I wanted you guys to know that. And then we also will be, and have already pushed out a survey on the 3 options that we have. And that survey opened up November 11th, and we're going to leave it open until November 19th. So once I have that information, I'm going to give that to Mr. Chapman, and he will be providing that to you in a Friday update. The survey went to all parents and all staff. This was not something we felt like needed to be on social media because the 2 main groups that are affected are the staff and our parents. So that's who we sent that to. I'm going to give you a quick overview of the 3, and if I missed something that you're interested in, please just ask. But calendar draft 1 is very, very similar to the calendar that we are currently in. And I want to pause and say that I wish we had lived the entire year in this calendar so that we would know a little bit more about how it's working, but I have heard some good things. So the first day of school would be Wednesday, August 10th. The last day is May 25th. And let me pause and say that the last day is it's right in tandem with what we do for graduation. Graduation dates, I believe, Mr. Streeter, the graduation dates are all the way through 2025. And that would be Memorial Day weekend. Do you know what day is Halloween? Halloween is October 31st.
It's a Monday.
I couldn't resist. It's been a long day. I believe that would be on Monday. Okay, it's a Monday. Mm-hmm. And we will get to the November 1st option. So the semester ends on draft 1, the semester ends in December, as it does the calendar we're currently in. The November PD day is on election day, which is November 8th. And that was chosen because there was some concern about the safety of our staff and students on prior elections. We added calendar draft 2 after having our meeting. And the only difference there is that we moved the PD day from November 8th to November 1st. The input was that the day after Halloween was something that our parents and staff really felt was necessary. It does mean that we put the election day back on the calendar. And so that is, we feel like we can provide the safety necessary at our locations if that is something that our parents and our staff and our community would like. I will say that
Last election, how many schools did we have?
that's what I was about to share. There were 4 schools that had a polling station. Okay, polling sites, and that would be 4 of them.
Where
And-
are they normally in this school building? Like in the cafeteria or the library?
Well, Mr. Chapman
Depends
and
on
I
the
were
school.
actually discussing that in our meeting this week. It can be, would you like to address that?
Yeah, I think it actually varies depending on the building that's selected because it has to be handicap accessible. You know, there are certain guidelines that we have to meet. So we just have to kind of work. It might be in the library, depending on if that's the most handicap accessible and, you know, so many feet from the entrance where, so we just kind of have to work with, you know, Tarrant County on where that's set up. Because we'd love for it to be, for example, you know, in the gym, so, because we have a separate entrance into the gym, but it doesn't always work that way because the handicap accessibility.
Is it always at the same 4 schools or does that rotate?
They work with us on telling us where those
Where they want
sites
them.
need to be and where they want them to be, and I think they do that based on where they need them actually in the county for voters to have accessibility to be able to vote. So we have had long discussions with Tarrant County about that and trying to look at, you know, various other places and options we have recommended, but you know, they've come back and said they needed those sites, and so we've tried to work with them and being a good neighbor.
Do you know what 4 they were last time? It's okay if
Right
you
there,
don't.
Mr. Chapman, I just handed it to you.
Pat May Center was one location which wouldn't impact our kiddos, Lakewood, Shady Brook, South Euless, and Stonegate Elementaries.
Stonegate
So-
and,
I would just like to offer that our first year on the board was the last time that the calendar didn't have the day off on election day. And there was a lot of conversation from a lot of the community about feeling very strongly that we not have our students on campus on election day. Now, maybe the sentiment has changed on that, but I don't want us to overlook that conversation that went on this board about that change.
And I think that's one of the real benefits of getting the survey out, hearing the voice of the customer, and, you know, giving our parents an opportunity to be able to get those 3 calendar options and respond back to us. One of the challenges sometimes we have is if our parents look closely enough to identify some of those changes. So I don't know if any of those were pointed out to them when the calendars went out to say, please be aware of some of these changes.
They were, what I'm reading you is exactly what was sent to the
Okay,
the
great.
staff.
So as long as they know
Absolutely.
about some of those changes and we didn't just rely on them looking at the calendar, that's great.
Absolutely. Okay, so I think I've gone over draft 2. Draft 3, this first semester does end on January 13th, as it has done far in the past, before this year. And the first day of school would be Monday, August the 15th, and the last day again would be May 25th. So there are less holidays in the spring in option 3 because of the semester ending in January. All 3 calendars provide family with a full week of Thanksgiving and over 2 weeks in our winter break. And then, of course, I've mentioned before, and I'll mention again, that May 25th is the graduation for both high schools. Any other questions? I'm sorry? I'm sorry, last day.
And I know Deanne's mentioned this a couple of times about graduation, but just a reminder that the reason we're boxed in on that graduation date is because of our contract with the Dickey Arena and because they service so many other school districts. We kind of have to get in line and use the date that they give us, and we were lucky to get the date we got, so.
All right, and the big reason why we shifted this year to finishing the semester before the winter break was for the junior highs, right?
That's exactly right. I can tell you my personal experience is that for the last 6 calendars, junior high has strongly suggested that we do that for the benefit of their students.
All right, are there any questions about the calendar options? All right, thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, we are down into our public hearing section. We're going to have an overview of the School First Financial Rating System of Texas. Usually Mr. Jones drives this, so.
Okay, good evening. We're going to present on the School First, which is the Financial Integrity Rating System of Texas. This is our 2021 rating, but it is based on 2019-2020 audited data. Okay. The purpose of this is it holds the district accountable for quality of the financial management practices. It is assigned by TEA. And it's using as I said, the audited financial data from 2019-2020, so about a year and a half old now. This year it's based on 20 indicators. In the past it's been 15, so they did increase it this year. The first 5 indicators are considered critical indicators. They're a pass-fail. If you pass them, you move on to the points system. If you fail it, you automatically get a substandard achievement rating. This year they added what they're calling ceiling indicators. On these, they're pass-fail again, but if you fail them, they set a maximum score that you can receive based on that question. So and they'd have it all set for 5 of the questions on here. Some of them are also part of the regular scoring as well. Okay. Indicator number 1 is just a timely filing of the financial reports. It's just did you turn the report in on time? And we did turn it in by January 22nd. You're supposed to have it in by the end of January. Indicator number 2 was, did you receive an unmodified opinion from your auditor? And we did. Number 3 is, have you defaulted on any of your school bonds, which we've never defaulted on a bond payment. Indicator number 4 is also a ceiling indicator as well as being a critical indicator. So this one is one where, did you make timely payments to the government agencies? If you did not make a timely payment and received a warrant hold for payment, you have 30 days to pay it, but you hit that ceiling indicator then and can only receive a maximum score of 95. All of our payments were on time, so we passed on both of those parts. Indicator number 5, they are still trying to create indicator number 5. They had it a few years ago, they took it out, and have not created a new one for us. The remaining indicators, 6 through 20, have a possible score of 0 through 10 points. 2 of the questions have a maximum of 5 points. And then if you score between 90 and 100, you can receive a superior rating. 80 to 89 is above standard. 70 to 79 is meet standard. Anything below 70 is substandard achievement. Those were raised this year. Last year it was anything greater than 60 got you above that substandard achievement. Number 6 is looking for a change in the fund balance. This one is a ceiling indicator, which had, if you fail it, you do get you can only max out at 89 points total. And basically, it's what was the average change in your fund balance over 3 years? If it was less than 25%, or if you have over 75 days in your fund balance, you pass it on that one. We average increase of 7.08% in our fund balance. And we were just slightly below on the 75 days, but we passed it on the first part of the 7.08%. Indicator number 7 is the number of days of cash or current investments on hand. They have a sliding scale that you can see there, so we have 273 days, which is greater than the 90 days, so we get the full 10 points on indicator number 7. Indicator number 8 is a ratio based on your current assets to your current liabilities. You wanted to be greater than or equal to 3.0, and we had a ratio of 4.7875, so got the 10 points there. Indicator number 9 is pretty much a pass-fail. You pass, you get 10 points. You fail, you get 0 points. And it's just that your general fund revenues equal or exceed your expenditures. And ours did by 18.67%. Indicator number 10, this is a new one for this year, that your budgeted revenue that they take in October on our fall PEMS has to be within 10% of where you actually fall at the end of the year. So we had a variance on there of 3.13%. Those were changes from budget amendments and budget changes throughout the year after fall PEMS was submitted in October. Indicator number 11 is another ratio of your long-term liabilities to total assets. You wanted to be less than 0.6. Ours was 0.5178, so full points there. Indicator number 12 was a debt to property value ratio. This was another new one this year. It's based on your property values per $100. And on that ratio, we came up with a 2.4705, which was less than the 4 that you had to have to receive 10 points. Administrative cost ratio takes a look at your expenditures in functions 11, 12, and 13, which is your instruction, your libraries, and your instructional support, and compares them against your expenditures in function 21 and 41, which is instructional leadership and administration office. And you want to be less than a 0.0855. We were at 0.0617, so the full points were received there. Indicator number 14 looks at your student and staff ratios to see if there's been a decline against each other on that over 3 years, basically making sure that you're not maintaining a large staff if you're losing students. And as of the end of the year, our staff ratio had decreased 2.47% over those 3 years, so full points received there. Indicator number 15 is another new one that basically looks at what we submit right before the session starts each time. That it's just a rough estimate of where we think we're going to fall for the 2 years so that they can use it for budgeting numbers from the state level. And for districts larger than 10,000 students, you're allowed to fall within 7% of that to receive the full 5 points here. For ours, for this year, we were at 3.94% of the actual ADA, so we've received the full points there. And then this indicator number 16 is looking at your PEMS data that you submit versus your annual financial report. PEMS submits it on a per account basis and rounds it on each account, where our full financial report doesn't round it at all. So there is some variance there. You're looking to be within 3%. Ours was a total of $280 on $182 million. So the full amount was received there. Indicator number 17 is another one of those ceiling indicators. If you fail, you can receive no more than 79 points. And it's just, this one used to be part 2 of indicator, or part B of indicator number 2 on the critical indicators, but they moved it down here now. And it's basically if your financial reports were free of any instances of material weakness from your auditor, and we did pass that one. 18 is another one from your annual auditor. Did the independent auditor indicate the annual financial report was free of any instant of material noncompliance for grants, contracts, and laws related to local, state, or federal funds? And we did receive the full points on that one. Number 19 is also one of the ceiling indicators. It basically just looks, did the school district post the required financial information on the website where it's supposed to be? Which we did. It's all located within the 2 clicks on our webpage. So we got the full 5 points there. And the final indicator is number 20. Did the school board members discuss the district's property values at a board meeting within 120 days before the district adopted the budget? Basically, it was another ceiling indicator that if you did not have this, you couldn't receive no more than 89 points. We did pass on that one. So if you added all the points together, you can see that we got the full 100 points again, passed all critical indicators and passed all ceiling indicators. So we got the full 100 on this one and got a superior rating again.
All right.
Any questions?
Just a comment and a question. First off, Mr. Jones, this is amazing that you and your department keep track of all this stuff. This is a loaded question, but there are some in legislators that would consider us having high fund balances as being a problem. Based on this information, should we have shortened our fund balance? Would that knock us out of several of these indicators?
Yes. Yeah, if you decrease your by the 25%, you could end up failing one of these indicators.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Jones. This is a public meeting, so I declare this public meeting now open to hear comments concerning the report presented on the School First Financial Integrity Rating System of Texas. Is there anybody present who wanted to make any comments towards this report? All right, hearing no further discussion, I will now close this public meeting. All right, now we're down to action items. Item 14.02, approval of employment recommendations. Any questions on those? I will accept the motion.
I move the board approve the employments as submitted.
Second.
I have a motion, a second, for the board to approve the employments as submitted. Please vote. And that motion passes. Approval of TK Education Consulting Proposal. Ms. Clark.
Good evening. I'm passing around, I believe you received this in the Friday update a couple of weeks ago, but I'm going to give you a hard copy in case. Wanted to speak just briefly about TK Education Consulting, just kind of give you an overview of the work that they're doing with us, and then if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer. We started our work with TK and her group 2 years ago in the 1920 school year before I was in this position, and last year it was interrupted by COVID. So we're back working with them this year. Started with 5 schools in 1920 and added on 6 schools this school year. And basically what we're doing with them, they are helping us with best practices for instruction to raise student achievement in our school district and the elementary schools that we're working with. They work very hard and close with us, with the coaches that come out to the campuses and work with the leadership teams in 3 main areas. We've got design and data meetings, and we've got observation, feedback, and coaching, and aggressive monitoring. So in the design and data meetings, what's happening there is the PLC, or the professional learning community, comes together, and that being the principal, assistant principal, instructional specialists, and the teachers on that team. And they meet together to work backwards on the standards, starting with the standard or the TEKS, unpacking that TEKS, looking at it carefully, because if you just read a TEKS, for example, a 5th grade math TEKS, you might read it and think, what does a student need to know in order to be successful on that TEKS? And it sounds very basic, right? Sounds like, oh, they might need to multiply, and problem solving. But when you really look at how it's tested on STAR, they might need to know how to do 5 things to accomplish that TEKS. So it's looking at that learning standard and unpacking it to say, what do students really need to know how to do? What do they need to be able to show in order to be successful in that TEKS? So then it's the teachers creating an exemplar, taking a problem that the students are going to solve, and is it aligned to the way it's going to be tested? And making sure that everything we're giving those students in independent practice is aligned to the rigor of how it's going to be assessed. And then looking at that, and when teachers are aggressively monitoring during independent practice, they're going around and they've got their exemplar in hand. It's already solved. They know exactly what they're looking for, not just the answer, but how's the student getting to it? So you can tell if students have misconceptions, and they're able to catch those just in time. And going to all students. Oftentimes teachers might go right to the kids that they know are going to struggle with the concept, because they're typically, the students are maybe struggling in math. And so they'll go and they'll start helping them, and then it's hard to get around to those kids that may already be getting it. So let's have a plan with how we're going to go through the process, and let's start with kids. Let's start with the early finishers, or the fast finishers as we call them, or let's start with those kids that we think might have it, but let's make sure. Let's go check on each student and not get bogged down, in the beginning with students that might be struggling. So it's really targeted, it's really specific, because you've got that exemplar in hand. So it's looking at that. It's planning for that effective first teach, so that hopefully we don't have the need to do a lot of reteaching. So let's plan for an effective first teach. How do we do that best? And so in that planning PLC, what they're working with our teams on is actually scripting out some of that lesson, and the teachers get up and actually have a chance to kind of try it out on each other and practice together, so to speak, before they come in front of the class. And we want it to be the best effective first teach. Now, obviously you can't do that with every single TEKS. That would take a lot of time. But let's take those highest leverage TEKS, those ones that we know our students are struggling with. I had a principal share with me last week. This was very exciting to me. One of our campuses that's working with TK and her group, the principal shared with me that each TEKS that they had done that with in a planning PLC, when they took the math DBA, they had huge improvement over the CBA and over last year's scores. And so that's very exciting. That's the whole goal of it, to help us have good instructional practices to help our students achieve. And then in the data meeting, that would be coming back, studying the results, looking at what went wrong, actually looking at samples of student work so we know where their misconceptions are, and we know how to reteach that group of students that may need a reteach, and we can plan for an effective reteach. So that's kind of a quick summary of the design and data meetings. And then there is the observation feedback, which is exactly what it sounds like, where the team goes, you know, the leadership team, the principal, the assistant principal, instructional specialist, goes in, observes the teaching taking place, and then gives actionable, effective feedback to teachers in order to be able to raise student achievement. It might just be some tweak in the instruction that the teacher can do and make a difference and really help the students with the understanding of the content. So that's the observation and feedback portion. And then the aggressive monitoring was a big part of the work that campuses did with TK and her group in the 1920 school year. Actually, it was kind of rolled out to all elementary schools. I was a principal at that time. I wasn't one of the schools that was working directly with the group, but we all had the training on the aggressive monitoring, and it was very effective. I had one of my rock star teachers actually tell me, wow, this is really, really good. She had really high scores and a lot of student success, but she saw that it was making a difference because it's very targeted. It's very specific. So that's just kind of an overview of what they're doing with us and helping us with instructional practices. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions from the board?
No, we saw this in action when the team from Bel Air came a couple weeks ago.
Bell Manor, Carrie McCarty.
Sorry,
Yes,
Bell Manor.
thank you, yeah.
I just think it is the perfect complement to our continuous improvement methodology and really gives teachers the tools necessary to help the kids that need it the most.
Yes.
Yeah, I actually got a call from one of our instructional specialists when I was driving to the board meeting tonight, and she just wanted me to know how important this is and how far it would set them back if it got taken away. So she just thought it was important to let me know that. So, all right.
All right, thank you.
If there aren't any further discussion, I'll accept a motion.
I move the board approve the TK Education Consulting proposal as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. The board approve the TK Education Consulting as presented. Please vote. And that motion passes. All right, we are ready for open forum 2. Nothing? Okay. We now have an opportunity for board members to request items to be placed on a future agenda. Does any board member have anything they'd like to place on a future agenda? Hearing none, we do not need a second closed session, correct? All right, I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We are adjourned.